Disclaimer: it's inspired by reality, shaped by imagination.
What happened when Billy Ray Cyrus walked onto The View expecting a lighthearted conversation about education quickly turned into one of the most heated debates the show had seen in months. The topic seemed simple at first. Should public schools limit screen time for students? A question parents and educators have been asking for years, one that normally sparks polite discussion and mild disagreement. But within minutes, the air in the studio shifted. Billy Ray, armed with personal stories from his family and his experience navigating technology with kids, approached the issue with a mix of humor and conviction. Joy Behar, as sharp and outspoken as ever, framed the conversation around the growing evidence linking excessive screen use to attention problems, anxiety, and declining social skills. The clash began almost immediately. Billy Ray emphasized creativity, adaptability, and the importance of digital literacy for today's students. Joy pressed on the responsibility of schools to safeguard children's health and development. What started as a friendly exchange quickly escalated, voices sharpening, interruptions piling up, and the audience caught in the middle of a debate that felt far bigger than just screen time. Within the first 10 minutes, it was clear this was no ordinary panel discussion. Social media would explode, clips would go viral, and viewers would be forced to pick a side or at least grapple with the tension between freedom and oversight in education. The question remained, could this conversation be resolved, or would it spiral into a full-blown clash between caution and creativity? Billy Ray Cyrus settled into his chair with an easy smile, waving to the audience as laughter and applause rippled through the studio. Joy Behar greeted him warmly, quipping that it had taken decades to finally get him into a daytime debate instead of a late-night monologue. Billy Ray laughed, tipping his head. "Well, I figured if I'm going to talk about kids and screen time, I might as well do it live with the pros," he said, earning a chuckle from the crowd. The discussion opened on common ground. Joy started by acknowledging that technology is here to stay and that students do need to learn digital skills to thrive. Billy Ray nodded vigorously. He told a story about his own kids using tablets and educational apps to explore music, storytelling, and even coding. "It's not just games," he said. "They're creating, they're experimenting, and yes, they're learning, sometimes more than I did in school." The audience applauded, some nodding along. Joy responded thoughtfully, emphasizing the other side of the coin. She spoke about studies linking excessive screen time to shorter attention spans, anxiety, sleep disruption, and challenges with social interaction. "Kids are staring at screens more than they're talking to each other," she said. "Schools have a role to play in protecting their health and helping them learn to balance." Her tone was calm, professional, but the concern was clear. Billy Ray nodded again, acknowledging the point. The first few minutes remained polite. They joked lightly about parents hiding phones and tablets from teenagers, and both shared anecdotes from their own experiences. Billy Ray spoke about allowing his children to explore apps for music composition, digital art, and even collaborative video projects. Joy smiled but pointed out that outside of school, not every child has supervision or guidance on how to use technology responsibly. "That's true," Billy Ray admitted, leaning back. "But schools can't just clamp down and pretend technology isn't part of learning. They need to teach kids how to use it, not just limit it. If you tell a kid no screens ever, you might be stifling creativity before it even begins." Joy nodded, replying, "I get that, but without boundaries, it becomes addictive. Kids need structure. They need to know when to step away from devices, especially when it affects their sleep, focus, and even social development. There has to be a balance." The conversation remained civil, but a subtle tension began to form. Billy Ray leaned forward, speaking passionately about adapting education to modern times, while Joy stayed firm on the responsibility of schools to set clear limits. They were not yet in full conflict, but the edges were beginning to show. Their smiles and jokes were still there, but the audience could sense the divide widening. Sonny chimed in briefly, asking how both of them would define reasonable limits in a school setting. Billy Ray suggested guidelines that incorporated both educational use and creative exploration, while Joy recommended stricter daily limits paired with monitoring and structured offline activities. The contrast was gentle at first, but the difference in philosophy was clear. By the end of this opening segment, the debate had moved from common ground into territory where core values, freedom versus guidance, creativity versus caution, would start to collide. The audience was engaged, the tension simmering just beneath the surface, and everyone in the room could tell that the friendly beginnings were only the calm before the storm. The shift was subtle at first, a quick exchange of words that hinted at a widening divide. Joy leaned in, her tone firmer, asking why Billy Ray seemed so hesitant to support clear limits in schools. "We're talking about kids who can't regulate themselves yet," she said, her hands gesturing to emphasize the point. "Schools have a responsibility to protect them. If we don't step in, who will?" Billy Ray responded with measured intensity. "I'm not against protection," he said, leaning forward. "I'm against one-size-fits-all rules. Technology isn't the enemy. It's a tool. Kids need guidance, sure, but also freedom to explore, experiment, and learn from it. Overly strict limits can stifle curiosity before it even starts." Joy's eyes narrowed slightly. She countered, saying that exploration without boundaries often leads to overuse, distraction, and even dependency. She cited studies showing that excessive screen time affects sleep, social skills, and mental health. "Schools aren't just babysitting," she said. "They're shaping the habits kids will carry into adulthood. And right now, we're failing them by letting devices run the show." Billy Ray nodded but didn't relent. He told a story about a student he'd met who used coding apps and online tutorials to build a small business in their school community. "That kid learned more from those tools than many traditional lessons," he said. The audience murmured in appreciation. "If we clamp down too hard, we lose those opportunities." Joy shot back, her voice sharper now, questioning whether anecdotal successes outweighed the broader risks. She asked Billy Ray if he would support schools that limited recreational screen time while still allowing educational use. Billy Ray agreed in principle, but warned that in practice, drawing that line is complicated. Kids often don't see a clear division, and educators can't monitor every device. The audience reacted audibly, some applauding Billy Ray's insistence on flexibility, others nodding at Joy's focus on structure. The room was divided, mirroring the national conversation about screen time. Sonny attempted to mediate, suggesting a compromise of structured digital blocks, balancing both learning and offline activities. Billy Ray nodded, saying that could work if applied flexibly. Joy shook her head, arguing that without firm institutional limits, many students would slip through the cracks. The disagreement became less about numbers or schedules and more about philosophy, authority versus autonomy, guidance versus freedom. Voices started overlapping. Joy emphasized responsibility. Billy Ray emphasized opportunity. The audience leaned forward, sensing the tension rising. Each personal anecdote, each study cited, made the stakes feel higher. This wasn't just a debate about devices. It was about control, trust, and the best way to equip children for a digital future. By the end of this segment, the clash had clearly escalated. Politeness was fading, replaced by sharper interjections, passionate arguments, and moments of subtle tension. The room was bracing itself, aware that the conversation was about to cross into something even more personal, emotional, and uncontainable. The room grew tense, the polite back and forth of earlier giving way to a more urgent personal exchange. Joy leaned forward, her voice softening slightly but carrying unmistakable weight. She spoke of children struggling, kids who couldn't focus for a full class, kids whose anxiety had spiked, kids whose social skills were eroding because screens had become their primary interaction. Her words painted a picture of real children facing real consequences, and the audience leaned in, silent and attentive. Billy Ray's gaze didn't waver. He nodded slowly, acknowledging the truth in what Joy was saying. But then he spoke, his tone calm but impassioned. He shared stories of children he'd encountered, kids who had discovered coding, music production, or art through tablets and online platforms. "I've seen kids take their first steps towards something amazing because they had access to these tools, he said. Screens didn't trap them. They gave them a way to explore, to create, to connect. Joy shook her head slightly, frustration creeping into her voice. I understand that, Billy Ray, she said, but not every child has guidance. Not every child knows how to balance this. And schools have a responsibility to set boundaries before it's too late. Her hands gestured, emphasizing the urgency. We can't just hope kids figure it out on their own. Their mental health, their ability to focus, their social growth, it's on the line. Billy Ray's jaw tightened, and for the first time, a flicker of visible emotion appeared. I get that, I really do, he said, leaning in. But if we just tell kids what they can't do, we risk shutting down curiosity entirely. I've seen students flourish when they were trusted to make choices, even with screens. It's not just about limits, it's about learning responsibility, about fostering independence. The audience reacted immediately, some cheering Billy Ray's point, others applauding Joy's concern. The split reaction reflected the national conversation, parents, teachers, and viewers caught between the dangers of overexposure and the need for technological literacy. Joy pressed further, her tone now more pointed. She asked how schools could ensure students developed healthy habits without firm rules. She argued that giving too much freedom, even with guidance, risks students overindulging, becoming distracted, or developing dependencies that could take years to reverse. Billy Ray responded without raising his voice, but his gestures became more animated. He recounted instances of students using online resources to start small businesses, collaborate on projects, or express themselves creatively. Those kids weren't just learning, they were thriving, he said. They were building skills, confidence, and a sense of ownership over their learning. Restricting that could do more harm than good. The tension escalated. Joy emphasized protection and boundaries. Billy Ray emphasized opportunity and adaptability. Their voices rose slightly, hands gesturing, eyes locked. What began as a debate over screen limits had become a deeper conflict over how children should be raised to navigate the digital age, whether through firm structure or guided freedom. Sonny attempted to interject, suggesting compromises like structured digital time and blended learning, but the exchange between Billy Ray and Joy was too charged to be paused. The audience could feel the weight of competing values, safety versus exploration, oversight versus independence. Every anecdote, every argument struck a chord. By the end of the segment, the emotional flashpoint had been reached. The polite debate was gone. The discussion had become personal, urgent, and impossible to ignore. The audience sensed that the breaking point, the moment where the clash would erupt fully, was imminent. The studio felt electric, almost suffocating. Joy Behar's voice cut sharply through the quiet, no longer measured or polite. She accused schools of negligence, saying that allowing unlimited screen use was tantamount to ignoring a child's well-being. We're not talking about convenience here, she said, leaning in toward Billy Ray. We're talking about kids who can't sleep, who can't focus, whose social skills are collapsing because adults are too afraid to set boundaries. Schools have a duty, period. Billy Ray's hands tightened around the arms of his chair. His calm composure was gone, replaced by a raw urgency. Boundaries are important, he said, voice rising slightly, but overregulation kills curiosity. It sends the message that exploration is dangerous, that creativity has limits. We're not raising children in a bubble. We're teaching them to navigate the real world, and the real world is digital. If schools clamp down too hard, they're stifling growth, not protecting it. Joy's eyes narrowed, her words coming faster now. She argued that Billy Ray's view prioritized freedom over responsibility, and that schools weren't just shaping academic success. They were shaping habits, attention spans, and emotional health. She asked how he could justify leaving students to self-regulate in an environment engineered for distraction. Kids aren't adults, she exclaimed. They need guidance. If we don't provide it, we fail them. Billy Ray leaned forward, cutting her off, his tone equally intense. And if we remove their agency entirely, we fail them in a different way. Kids need to make choices. They need to learn consequences. Overbearing rules don't teach responsibility, they teach fear of failure. Are we really preparing them for life or just trying to control every moment of it? The audience erupted into murmurs and applause, divided almost perfectly down the middle. Some cheered Joy's insistence on boundaries and oversight. Others applauded Billy Ray's defense of freedom and digital literacy. The energy in the room was palpable, almost chaotic. Producers exchanged urgent glances. Cameras shifted as operators tried to capture the heightening tension. Sonny attempted to mediate, suggesting structured screen blocks and blended learning, but neither Joy nor Billy Ray was willing to step back. Joy accused him of romanticizing technology at the expense of well-being. Billy Ray accused her of infantilizing students and undermining their potential to navigate modern tools responsibly. Their voices overlap now, rapid fire, cutting into one another, each point sharper than the last. Joy cited studies linking excessive screen time to behavioral and cognitive issues. Billy Ray countered with examples of students who had launched creative projects, online collaborations, and even entrepreneurial ventures thanks to screen access. The conflict had moved beyond policy or curriculum. It was about values, control versus independence, safety versus opportunity, and how society chooses to prepare children for a digital age. For a brief moment, the studio went silent, everyone catching their breath as the weight of the argument settled. Then Joy leaned in again, repeating her insistence that schools must take responsibility, while Billy Ray's rebuttal emphasized the importance of freedom and trust. The intensity was almost unbearable. By the end of the segment, there was no resolution. The clash had reached its peak, a perfect storm of ideology, experience, and emotion. The debate had become more than screen time. It had become a reflection of larger societal tensions over parenting, education, and how we equip the next generation to thrive. Everyone watching knew that what came next would define the lasting impression of this episode. When the cameras cut to a wide shot after the heated debate, the atmosphere in the studio had shifted dramatically. Billy Ray Cyrus sat back in his chair, his usual charm subdued, eyes thoughtful as he reflected on the conversation. Joy Behar adjusted her notes, her expression a mixture of exhaustion and concern. Even the audience, usually quick to applaud or cheer, sat quietly, processing what had just unfolded. The episode hadn't delivered a tidy resolution. There were no clear winners or losers, only two perspectives brought to life with intensity, conviction, and genuine concern for the children they both spoke about. Billy Ray had defended the potential of technology to inspire creativity, foster independence, and equip students with the tools to thrive in a digital world. Joy had championed structure, caution, and oversight, emphasizing the responsibility schools hold to protect children from harm and guide their development. Both viewpoints were compelling, both grounded in truth, and both resonated deeply with viewers. Online, the reaction was immediate and explosive. Clips of Billy Ray passionately defending digital freedom and Joy sharply advocating for limits were shared widely across social media. Comment sections became arenas for debate, with parents, educators, and viewers weighing in passionately. Some supported Joy's insistence on boundaries, citing their own experiences with children overwhelmed by screens. Others sided with Billy Ray, arguing that the future demands flexibility, creativity, and an ability to navigate technology responsibly. The conversation spilled beyond the studio, highlighting the very tension the debate had illuminated: how to balance safety and opportunity in a digital era. The episode underscored a crucial truth. Teaching children isn't just about academic content. It's about shaping habits, values, and the capacity to think critically. Screens are tools, yes, but they also present challenges that demand careful navigation. Billy Ray's point about fostering curiosity without fear resonated with those who worry about stifling innovation. Joy's insistence on limits and responsibility resonated with those concerned about mental health, focus, and social development. Both perspectives were necessary, and both left a lasting impression. By the end, the studio was quiet, not because the debate had been resolved, but because the audience and viewers at home were left thinking deeply. The clash forced a reflection on larger questions: How do we guide children in a world that demands digital literacy yet carries risks of distraction and harm? How do schools and parents collaborate to foster creativity, independence, and responsibility? And ultimately, who gets to decide where freedom ends and protection begins? The intensity of the discussion reminded everyone that these are not abstract issues. They touch on daily life, on how children spend their hours, on the skills they develop, and the balance between guidance and autonomy. This wasn't simply a debate about screen time. It was a conversation about values, priorities, and the responsibility of adults to prepare the next generation for a world that is both digital and demanding. If you felt torn watching this exchange, you weren't alone. The discomfort, the split opinions, and the unresolved tension are all part of what makes this topic so vital. It's a reminder that there are no easy answers, only thoughtful engagement, compromise, and ongoing dialogue. If you like this powerful moment, make sure to subscribe for more emotional showdowns, cultural debates, and unforgettable TV clashes. Drop a comment below. Should public schools limit screen time, or is digital freedom essential for preparing children for the future?